Now, I feel sorry for Thomas. I'm sure Thomas was a good man. After all, Jesus selected him to be one of his disciples. With Jesus, he went through all of the ups and downs of a discipleship, including the crushing disappointment of the crucifixion. We don't know much about Thomas' later life, but some commentaries say that he even went to India and established a church in that great nation. So Thomas is not remembered much for the good things he did. He is remembered for one thing, and one thing only, his mistake, so to speak. He is remembered for doubting the resurrection of Jesus. And whenever you hear the name Thomas, you think, and I think of doubting Thomas. There is no question Thomas doubted. But who has not doubted? How would you like to have your entire place in history defined by the one thing you were mistaken for? It happens more often than not. Many like to focus on the negative and neglect the goods. It happened to Thomas. I feel sorry for him, but at the same time, I am sympathetic to Thomas for being a doubter. I have had doubts, and I know that's okay. Actually, I wonder about people who are certain about everything. Either they are made differently, or most probably, they have buried their doubts, or they pretend they do not exist, usually afraid to face them. Tennyson wrote, "Believe me, there lives more faith in honest doubt than in half the creeds." Have you ever doubted? Have you ever wondered about Jesus and the cross and the resurrection? Have you ever asked yourself if you are really dealing with faith or misconception? Have you ever questioned why a loving God permits suffering? Have you ever asked, why am I a Christian? Is it only because my parents were Christians? Have you ever really struggled with faith and doubt? Sometimes we are afraid to struggle with our doubts. Sometimes we just push them into the background. Sometimes we fear that if we allow ourselves to entertain doubt, we may fall into the dark night of unbelief. Now, it is good that every year on the Sunday following Easter Day, we always read the story of Thomas, regardless if we are in year A, B, or C. Why? I think it's because we can learn from Thomas how to deal with our doubts. Actually, I read many years ago, I don't remember where, but of 4 ways we can learn from Thomas. First, we can learn from Thomas' mistake. The great preacher, Stanley Jones, notes that Thomas missed the regular meeting time of the apostles. The disciples had gathered together in a locked room after Jesus' death. Jesus came into that locked room saying, "Peace be with you." Then John writes, "But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came." And Stanley Jones went on saying, "His faith had not been kindled by the faith of the others. Hence, he sank into doubt." His faith had not been kindled by the faith of the others. Hence, he sank into doubt. When we struggle with issues of faith and doubt, we need the support of other Christians. God designed us to need each other, and God designed the church, that's the people of God, not the institution, to grow and to question our Christian faith through Christian fellowship. We get into trouble when we separate ourselves from the church, the community of faith, usually in the hope that we will find faith on our own. Second, we can learn from Thomas' honesty. He did not just go along. He refused to say that he believed what he did not believe. He spoke boldly, and he was with folks that allowed him to question. They did not silence him. Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hand, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and my hands on his side, I will not believe. As Christians, we need to guard against letting pessimism and doubt control our lives. But we also need to confront our doubts. We need to be honest about our doubts as we are about our faith. One needs to be able to say, I really have a problem believing that, if in fact one does. And I trust St. John in the Mountain is a safe place to express your doubts and your questions. In the midst of doubts, keep an open mind. Don't let your doubts run your life, but don't run away from them either. The way to faith is often through honest struggle. We cannot honestly struggle with doubt unless you can admit its presence. William Barclay, a theologian who wrote many commentaries, says, the cure for doubt is not to push a thing into the back of the mind and refuse to think about it. The cure for doubt is to take away through the doubts. We would have a faith that would be more secure if we did not turn back from thinking too soon. End of quote. So first we can learn from Thomas' mistake. He was not with the 12. And second, we can learn from Thomas' honesty. Third, we can learn from Thomas' enthusiastic faith. Once Thomas saw Jesus, he went beyond anything that had been said before when he said, my Lord and my God. Thomas was not a lukewarm Christian. Once he was convinced, he was willing to jump into the lead. And finally, fourth, we can take heart in Jesus' words. Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet come to believe. We are the one who have not seen Jesus, at least not in the same way that Thomas saw Jesus. Because of that, Jesus calls us blessed. But in fact, we have seen Jesus. We have seen him in the faces around us. We have seen him in the beauty of the world, which God gave us. We have seen him as he walked with us through our dark nights. We have seen him in the smile of a friend. We have seen him in the presence of our community gathered. Also note this about Thomas. He was not present with the other disciples on Easter evening when the risen Christ first came to them. That's why the other disciples saw Jesus, but Thomas did not. When the other disciple told Thomas that they had seen Jesus, that he had risen from the dead, Thomas told them that he didn't believe them. And you know what's great? Thomas could tell his friend He was doubting, and they did not reject him. They welcomed him to join them. And so, the second time that Jesus appeared to the disciple, Thomas was with them. Seeing Jesus face to face, Thomas did believe. I don't think I am stretching a point when I say that one lesson we can draw from Thomas' experience is that we benefit by spending time with other Christians. Your presence here this morning is important not only for yourself, but for the others. When Thomas saw Jesus and affirmed his faith, Jesus said, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." Again, we are the one who have not seen and yet have come to believe. And Jesus calls us blessed. So do not fear. Face your doubts honestly. Give thanks you have this community of St. John in the Mountain, where you have contact with other Christians. And I trust you are able to ask questions and share moments of faith. But most importantly, while questioning, I encourage you to keep worshiping and keep rubbing elbows with other Christians. In closing, we live in very uncertain times, not only in our own life, but also the life of our community, in our country, and the world for that matter. There's so much anger, confusion, and uncertainty. We don't know who to trust. So many people in leaderships are self-serving. More than ever, we need each other. We need each other to help us not to forget the source of our strength, but also to know that regardless of what happened to us, God is there watching and loving and protecting our soul. And God is there helping us through tragedies. It doesn't mean we stay idle. It doesn't mean we stay idle. We have responsibilities. But we remember that God is ever present, giving us the strength to do something about it. We need each other in a place where we know we are loved. So keep worshiping and keep rubbing elbows with other Christians, with this community of faith. Let their faith by the power of the Spirit do its work in your heart, and then be prepared to receive God's blessing and have the courage to speak up. And as our presiding Bishop Michael Curry reminds us, if it's not about love, it's not about God. If it's not about love, it's not about God. Amen.